This week on Dumb Pitches, my guest is Jupiter Zirkua, aka Stuffy Doll. We talk about their new album, and also we finally get a mixture of drugs story. 10 different drugs, and it actually is different. They've written it out so we know which drugs they are, all in one day at a music festival, which causes them to leave the cult that they accidentally joined. It's quite an episode. Here we go, Dumb Pitches.
What a bunch of dumb pitches. Oh my goodness.
Welcome to another episode of Dumb Pitches with Monica Nevi. I'm Monica Nevi, your host. This is the show where we talk to successful people about their worst ideas. I am so excited for our guest. This week, we haven't had a musician, overall artist is what I would call this person, in quite a while. We've had mostly comedians, so I'm happy to have a little diversity in the art forms. Welcome my guest, Jupiter Zirkua. Yay.
Hey. Thank you for having me. I really genuinely, when I reached out to you about like wanting to do this, I was like, do I count as successful? Like I've heard her say this in the show, and I'm like, I think maybe because we're friends, I can squeak in.
Oh yeah, this is fun. Also, it's a pretty. You've seen who I've had on. It's pretty lenient.
I mean, like Ken Hamlet, a mutual friend of ours, like he's a successful fella.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I think what for me that actually means is like that you've tried a lot of different things and you've created different things. So I think
there's a lot of different kinds of success.
Yeah, that's it. Well, and we'd like to introduce, so everyone knows the good ideas you've had and stuff. And so as a musician, you're known as Stuffy Doll, and you've been creating for a long time. And you have a new album that's coming out, which is what we wanted to make sure everybody knows. Should be December 4th, and it's called Resolution.
Yeah, I got a wild hair, and I was like, what if I make a song for every month of the year?
Okay, because the newest one that just came out is called February, and so I was, okay.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, the 3 singles I've released are December, which is like a waltz about abortion, September, which is like a pop punk thing about just some abusive guy that was in my life. That's a whole, we might get into that.
Okay.
And then February is, I don't know what I would call that genre-wise, glitch hop screamo.
Wow.
It's about like a necromancer. It's
that's
a bit
when
more
my birthday is.
Great.
Well, this is fun. This is on your Bandcamp. Just how to describe your music, which is great. Stuffy Doll is weird music for creatures that like stories, wordplay, glitter, and grit. I love it. I think that's just because it does, obviously you just explaining it does span different genres and topics and stuff. And so I love it. I think it's great.
And I think the last time you and I were in person, I was leaning heavy on that glitter element. My first, God, talk about the dumb ideas. My first like EP cover, was I put just a fistful of glitter into my mouth, and then I like turned the camera around and took a picture. And then I didn't do it good, and so I had to keep doing it. It's hard to like hold the camera and like have glitter in your mouth. I was choking the whole time.
Oh my gosh!
I got a shot. It was just like hurling glitter all through my bandmate's bedroom.
I was gonna say, I feel like I saw that picture looking up your albums and stuff. Then you see there's glitter out there.
Yeah, it's bad. Don't put glitter in. There's like food safe glitter. It was not that.
It was not that. This is
bad.
Just went to Michael's and got the big pack.
I was like genuinely, because I ended up going to a dentist like a few months after that for something. I was genuinely worried they would find like a bit of glitter in like a cavity or something. I'd have to explain myself.
You're like, I tried to do a crown on my own.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so eating glitter, that's a good start. Yeah, what other bad ideas did you think of when we talked about how this works?
So the things that made me go like, maybe I have a place for this podcast. I was sort of I was part of a dumb cult. It wasn't like there are people out there who like know how to run a cult and like do it good and have like resources
Yeah.
and make it like a big problem for everybody. It wasn't quite that, but it was like a weird hippie cult that I was in, and
Okay.
that sort of leads into the other thing, which is I know that you've talked about wanting to have like a good drug mixing story.
Yeah.
And I have one where I had I think 10 different drugs in me in a day. Um, so that's the
Wow.
other thing.
And was that when you were
Um,
in the okay, let's start with the cult part because I was very interested in this. You mentioned it to me when we were talking about it and I was like, this hasn't happened on this show before, but I love a good cult story, so I'm
it's
ready.
it's the dumbest cult. It's not like a the it, so when I was like 19, I want to say, um, a friend of mine died. He killed himself, and that's a real bummer to the story, but it's fine. The and so like a lot of friends kind of converged at his funeral. A lot of people sort of remade connections that they had previously lost because we known him like middle school, and so like some people ended up connecting again that maybe wouldn't have otherwise, and that led to my friend. And I'm gonna try so hard not to say anybody's actual human name.
Okay. Well, if that happens, I
They
can take it out. But
yeah they but a friend of mine ended up living at this I'm gonna call it a compound. This just sort of like land that somebody's dad owned.
okay.
Um, and she was living there with like a few other people. I end up going there a few times at her invitation. It's like it's I mean on the outside it's just like some teenage to like early 20s people have this like little miracle hole in backwoods Florida where they party and do drugs all the time.
Okay.
And then I end up starting to live there because like um I was technically homeless from when I was like 16 onward. I had like a weird bad relationship with a weird bad mom. And so yeah, I'd stay with a few friends and everything, and I ended up living
At this
here because
compound.
they're
Okay.
very very welcoming. Yeah, there
Okay.
was space. Well, I say there was space. No, there fucking wasn't space. It was a lot of space. Like it was a lot of land,
Okay.
but it was one trailer, one normal sized trailer.
How many people were
um,
in there?
well, I would say at the time I moved in, let's see, it
Oh my gosh.
was
Fingers are counting.
including me, I think there was six with like oh no, wait. Yeah, including me there was six when I moved in. And then there was some like cast shakeups in that. And then there was like a
Mm.
main house down the way that had a lot more space, but a lot less people living in it.
Okay.
That was just two people. Well, because we were the dirty, grimy friends of the person whose dad actually owned the
Got
place.
it. So they were like
Um,
you in the trailer.
yeah, exactly. Like, hey, I don't want you all to die on the streets or whatever. So have this little trailer. And like it was a lot of it was fine. And I'm not trying to cast aspersions on the two people who didn't turn out to be like crazy Republican nut jobs after a few
Really
years.
interesting.
Yeah, it surprised the hell out of me because like that place made me a more liberal person.
That would. I
Um,
mean, I this and maybe this is me being small-minded about stuff, but it doesn't. It cults, communes, hippie type of, co-living type of situations always strike me as very hippie, not necessarily liberal, but not
right.
conservative.
There was definitely a hippie element. The thing is like the all the hippies from the 60s grew up to be Republicans.
That's fair. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
there's like I think maybe it's because we're from this like very evangelical part of Florida that like the mindsets kind of bled together, and when you're doing so many hallucinogens and shit all the time and so much like
Gosh.
coke and other stuff all the time, reality starts to blur in this way where some of us maybe didn't understand kind of our connection with what we were doing anymore.
Okay, I see. So the
Yeah,
drugs had a lot to do with it then.
I, I part of me hopes so, but also some of these people got sober and then got more diehard right. So
Well, that's
it's
yeah, okay.
it's yeah, it's hard to say. I think that really some of them who went down that route, like part of where it started clicking to me after I left that oh, there were some cult elements of this, is that like a not insignificant number of the people who were regularly on site, and they didn't like live there technically, but this was a thing where we had like a big party almost every night, and
Yeah.
we had people coming in from all over.
Got it. Yeah, other people
one
would
of-
want to join that, of course.
right, and way too many of them were underage girls. Like I think
It's not
the
funny in a
youngest one-
real, but just that this is like
no, but yeah,
it's a visual for me, and like honestly, you're right. When you said cult, I was like, we'll see. But every part of a cult seems to have been trickled into this
Yeah.
story so far, so that's good. I mean, not good, but you know.
it was just excusable enough. Like, and I guess this is how people get into cults, is that like every individual thing is just excusable enough that you're just like, this part is normal and this part is normal. But when you start to like have the distance of I was out for a few years, I started like, ooh,
Oh,
okay.
that was-
So the like sort of de facto leader of the operation sort of made his way through a lot of teenage girls.
Okay. Like any good cult
and-
leader.
Yeah, exactly. And he ended up actually impregnating one of them the night of that drug combination story. I happen to know exactly when that happened.
Well, it seems like you would remember, not maybe
Yeah.
everything, but
Yeah, well,
remember the day.
like-
Yeah.
I was friends with a lot of the girls because like this is maybe not the most visually or auditorially apparent, but like I'm trans, and at the time was not fully aware, or certainly not out. And so like my friend base has predominantly been women my whole life.
Yeah.
And so like when there's a bunch of girls who show up to a thing and guys just kind of swoop in to try to fuck them, my instinct is always to just sort of like drag them away and be like, hey, so like what do you do? Why are you here?
Why is this happening? Okay. But
yeah,
this particular time you were on, you may not have been in the state of mind to do that.
Yeah, I certainly made friends with them. I was closer with a lot of them than I was with some of the dudes, but like it everybody's on a lot of drugs, and I maybe wasn't as well, no, I definitively wasn't as good at fully offering the sage wisdom of like, why are you fucking this dude? How's everything at home?
You know, your normal check-in questions. Why are you fucking this dude? How's everything at home?
Yeah, like this is a habit that I've gotten, I think, a little bit better at making sure that I ask that is everything good at home questions. Fortunately, I don't actually spend a lot of time with young girls anymore. I live in West Virginia now, and so I spend time with no one except for my husband.
There you go. That'll be
we know exactly he has met like a couple people out here, which is weird because he's the introvert. I generally like talking to people. I have met no one.
That's funny. I mean,
but the weird sex crimes was a lot of it, and I think the about the time where I was like, I see problems here.
So
I'm in it. Well, I'm sorry, what?
No, this is interesting because every whatever cult documentaries and murder documentaries and things like that are so popular now that these are the questions that I think people have when they hear a story is, one, how did you get involved? Two, why, if these things were happening, at what point do you go, okay, this is too much, which is interesting that you would say that, like, okay, well, the sex crime part is
yeah, well, the thing is that this is going to sound maybe a little bit glib, but like it's really, at least of my experience and a lot of my friends' experience, it was true at the time. Like, if you live in Florida, you're surrounded by sex crimes.
Yeah. If you live in Florida, you're surrounded by sex crimes is such a sad thing, but a true thing to say. And so, okay, so then you're like, well, this seems less appalling than if you were in a place that wasn't also surrounded by other sex crimes.
Yeah, it's like that. I was born in the darkness, Batman.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
No, but like I was again. I'm trying not to go like too dark on any particular thing, but like I grew up being sexually abused on a few vectors. I was like, it was actually a long stretch of time where I was like groomed by this pedophile white supremacist.
Oh my gosh. And this was all in Florida, though.
That had nothing to do with a cult, which is weird.
That was just a separate Jesus. I mean, we all have our opinions of what Florida is like, but it seems like pretty dead on sometimes. So you're like, oh, geez.
It's like weirdly dead on. The viewers might not know this. We were recording this the day after the election.
Right,
It didn't go so great for Florida.
No.
I'm like still I'm actively a little bit shaky, and that's three things. One, I'm still stressed about incoming stuff from the election. Two, it's freezing here. And three, I very rarely talk to people anymore. And like, I know I'm showing up funny and everything, but this is like my first, like, I have to talk to somebody like a full grown up and not just my stupid D&D friends.
Well, and then we're like, tell us about your cult, like
yeah, exactly.
Of all things. All right. So you have kind of inadvertently joined this cult. Whatever. It's more, it's commune, and you're having fun.
Yeah, somewhere splitting the difference.
Yeah, having fun, hanging out, partying, and everybody kind of started to live in this space. And then you were maybe the drugs were happening, I guess, at this time.
Yeah, well, the way that I kind of started like having it occur to me, like, oh, this is a cult, and I
was going to ask that, so that's good.
Yeah, I done got myself in a cult. The first thing was like, what the kind of de facto like leader of the cult at some point took me into his room, which was not like uncommon. I'd hang out in his room sometimes, and he just showed me like his gun that he had and started waving it around. Okay. And that was my first like, I think maybe there's something amiss here.
Yeah. This feels weird.
The night. I tried to like before we did this interview, I tried to like really shape how I would like establish a narrative here, and I did find it, which is the same night that it really occurred to me I've got to stop hanging out with most of these people. What was also the same day that I did 10 different drugs in the course of a day, like had 10 different drugs in me actively.
10 like different types of drugs, not like different hits.
Yeah. Different types of drugs.
Do you remember what they all were?
Oh yeah, no, I've got a little document opened with like the order that I did them in, so
okay.
I can remember as I tell this story.
Thank you. Wow.
It might surprise you. I don't have the best memory of this day. I do remember a lot of like key points, but like the order and stuff, I've had to like write it down to keep track of.
Wow. Okay.
And like I should also say, this was a fine day. This was nothing bad happened from doing all these drugs, and these drugs are not the reason that I realized I had to stop hanging out with these people.
Okay.
It's just that same dude with the gun ended up let's not mince words. I'm not using names, so I feel pretty legally comfortable saying sexually assaulting somebody and getting her pregnant.
Which is unfortunately
she was a friend of mine.
Rather common in a cult situation.
Yeah, for
power,
sure.
And then weird sex stuff, inappropriate sex stuff, and often assault.
It's both common in a cult situation and in a music festival situation, which is where this happened.
Oh, God. Okay.
So we okay. So the reason I was this was after I moved to Washington, even
Mm.
because like if one endeavors to listen to a lot of early Stuffy Doll stuff, I recommend it. Some of the early stuff is honestly better than some of the middle stuff. They'll hear like a lot of songs kind of about these people
Oh.
that are in
Ooh.
a more like reverent way. There I was very much romanticizing a lot of these people early on, and I went back to Florida because my mom, who I am no longer in contact with, she's a nut job, but her husband at the time died of random freak brain tumor.
Yeah.
That wasn't great. I'm here laughing about it. But he died of a brain tumor that came on like pretty suddenly. Other than we probably all should have caught it way earlier, but we just sort of assumed he was an idiot.
Okay. Got
And
it.
it turns out maybe there were some cognitive symptoms of a brain tumor that we were all just like, oh well, he's an alcoholic idiot. Like we just sort of overlooked him.
Right.
But I was in town for the wake of that, and like spent like a very quick amount of time like sort of doing the rounds at that, and then I was like, I've got to go to a music festival with my friends.
Okay.
Deuces, mom. We've never gotten along. So I went to Earth Dance. That's just like a hippie music festival out there.
Sounds like it. Earth Dance. All right.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like on like some farmland. There's always a dog there, which is cool. Like a dog that like lives on the property. Love that dog. But yeah, so I met up with like a bunch of my friends from this place that I had since moved out of. But you know, I was excited to see them all again. I think this was the second day of like a 4-day festival, I think.
Okay.
So wake up. Beer, weed, nicotine, those are the easy three.
Okay.
Those,
what time is this?
Oh, this is fucking 8:30, 9 a.m.
Okay, so normal wake up time. Got it.
Yeah, I wake up like my dear husband wakes up like the midday-ish. I have been kissed by a witch and cursed to constantly wake up like pretty early in the morning, no matter what the situation.
Yeah.
So they just immediately wake up, start drinking beer, start smoking weed. I've been addicted to nicotine since I was like 12 or 13 years old.
Okay.
I quit smoking cigarettes when I was like 21, like right when I turned 21. But I've still got like a vape over here and stuff. So those three are how I start the day, and they're a constant throughout the day.
Okay.
Just assume there's like a beer in my hand and like a blue e-cig, because that's what
For the rest of the story.
Just through the whole story. Yeah. So I asked one of my like two friends who are actually awake at this point, like, okay, so who's got mushrooms? Because I want to do mushrooms today. I'm in Florida. I don't trust the people in Washington to give me good mushrooms. I want the good stuff. And so they point me to a tent that's like fairly adjacent to ours with a dude I don't know.
Okay.
But he sells me some mushrooms, and so I take like 3 grams of mushrooms, which some viewers who do mushrooms might be like, "It's a lot of mushrooms." I'm a big person. I'm like 6'2", 6'3" on a good day, and it takes like 2.5, 3 grams to really get me like full on trip.
Okay.
So I get the mushrooms. I take them immediately. I'm like, this is going to be my day. My day is about doing mushrooms, and mushrooms is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, just gonna be a mushroom day.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, I eat the mushrooms. I fucking choke them down. I don't have my normal like peanut butter sandwich situation that I would like to be doing
make
for
a tea
getting
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I choke them down. I'm sitting there. I'm drinking fucking Yingling with my garbage friends.
Yeah,
And this dude comes back around after like an hour. Like I'm like just starting to really feel like the little patterns are starting to lift and everything. I'm like just starting to get high off the mushrooms. And the same guy who I bought them from, he comes around, and now I met this guy when he sold me mushrooms, and I have not seen him after this interaction ever.
Okay.
He comes up and he's just like, "Hey man, you want some Molly?" And I was like,
Molly.
Yeah, I do want some Molly. Thank you. Like I obviously I do want some Molly. And so he reaches into a bag that does does not have Molly in it. With a knife, and just puts the knife out to me with like a bump. Normally despite this whole story, and despite the fact that I'm like day drinking right now as I'm having this interview, I'm actually fairly responsible with drugs.
Okay.
I like, very like measured.
Right.
I like to kind of know what I'm getting into. But I was already high. I'm like, fuck it, it's Earth Dance. I'm not back in Florida very often. We're going crazy.
Right. This is a special day.
Yeah, exactly. Like my mom's husband just died. That's a cause for celebration.
Yeah.
And I take the bump.
It's not Molly. Okay.
I don't know exactly what it is, but my running theory for the past several years has been that is the first and only time I've done meth.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my best fucking guess. It was meth or PCP. It's something I've never done before and would never do again.
Did you feel right away? Like you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is different.
I like hit it and then came back into my chair. This little gremlin man skitters off into the darkness and I never see him again.
Ever. Okay.
Like literally throughout the rest of the festival, I don't even see him. And I'm like immediately like, I made a choice. I made a real choice. What are we gonna do here about this choice? And I immediately lose like concept of time.
Okay.
So hypothetically, I think it's maybe like 15 minutes that I'm sitting there, but it could have been 15 seconds. It could have been an hour. I don't know. Where I'm just like struggling. I'm trying to like hold the pieces of my psyche together in what is like, it's clearly an upper, which is why I've generally thought like, it's probably just meth, because it's like an upper without the same kind of like, lovey-dovey euphoria that Molly gives me.
Yeah.
And
that was a very Florida thing to say. It's probably just meth.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess in my brain for some reason PCP is like the more scary one.
Okay.
But I think at that point it's all a wash. It's all just like you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
So I almost said the room. It's not a room. We're out in the open. We're out sitting in like a bunch of those like fold out like camper lawn chairs kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that whole area just starts to completely gyroscopically spin for me. And I'm just like, this is a problem. I need to not be around any human beings because I'm absolutely losing my mind. And so I get up. Ooh, boy. Nothing stops spinning when I get up.
Oh, gosh.
I stagger. I shamble like a fucking World War Z zombie, just off in the direction of the porta potties, because I'm like, that's the only place where I can have like an isolated experience for a second. I don't know. I remember perceiving that people were seeing me and just being like, I don't have time for that. But it was very much just like both arms like out and like legs wide and just trying to get the like 200 feet from where I was to where the porta potties were without just like falling and needing anybody to have like an ambulance come for me or something. Because that's always been like my main thing with drugs is like I don't want it. I don't want anybody with even a modicum of authority to ever perceive me in that state.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
So I think I'm like 21, 22 when this is all happening. And so I do reach the porta potties, and I don't know if it's have you gone to a lot of like music festivals?
I've been to a couple, but I've never like gone camping and stayed out. Like
fair
like
enough,
fair over.
Enough.
Yeah.
Right, you probably hit like a porta potty though at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's a distinct sort of chemical smell that I don't know if it was like the just getting alone for a minute and getting to like vibe with myself, or if that particular smell was acting like smelling salts. But I get in there and I'm like,
snap out of it a little bit.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I'm good. I'm definitely still tremendously
Oh,
high,
I'm sure.
but I'm lucid now. You know, like
Okay.
I can come back to it. Okay, cool. And so I take like an extra second to like just breathe. You know, this is all gonna be cool. You're good now. Let's go out and face the day.
Yeah.
And so I come out and I'm walking normal, and I'm probably confusing a few people who saw
They're
me
like,
shamble
what
in
happened
there.
in that porta potty?
Yeah, exactly. Like, did you talk to like a fairy who
Is
gave
that
you a boon? Like, what's
Narnia? And go through here. Yeah.
so I walked back, and my a couple of my friends who I hadn't seen yet today, they were at the campsite now, and they're just like, "Hey, Jupiter, you're showing up right now. What great timing! We're all about to go back to my car and go do some coke." And I'm like, "Here's the thing about me. Um, I developed a coke problem when I was like hilariously young. I developed a coke problem in late eighth grade that I kicked like around the start of freshman year of
Wow.
high school.
That's like
They
just what a unnecessary time to need cocaine, you know? When you have the
really,
most
that's a
energy in your
great word
life.
for
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I mean, like, I absolutely didn't, for what it's worth.
Well, okay, yeah.
I was undiagnosed autistic growing up, which led to also being undiagnosed deeply depressed growing up. I was finding like anything I could
I was
shove
gonna
in
say,
my
then you're like,
mouth
this
or
makes me
nose.
feel better. Great. Yeah, like all right.
Exactly. It makes me feel like just anything at all. It makes school tolerable. I grew up like a chubby kid, and like that was another layer of bullshit. The abusive mom, like there was a lot of stuff, and that's not to be like, oh, woe is me or whatever. Because again, like I had fun on this day, and I don't want to make it sound like a tragic story.
So, but you,
Yeah,
so we're like, yes, I'm in to do the cocaine
yeah,
as
like
well.
oh yeah, it's been enough time. Like,
Got it. Okay, so you had kicked
again,
this habit
yeah,
before, and you're like, I'm
and
more
again, like
responsible
it's
now.
exactly, and it's Florida. Your miserable excuse for coke up there, that's fucking trash. Florida's where good coke is. I've had your Washington coke, and I love your Washington people. Your Washington coke is subpar.
I don't even know if I've
This
had
is
Washington cocaine. I think I may have only ever done cocaine in
I
California, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can point you to some people in Washington. If the FBI sees this, no, I can't. But
They are big fans,
so
so that's
yeah, and like this particular friend, like, always has like the good. You know, like this is who you go to when you want the supremo shit of whatever it is you're looking for. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go to your car and do coke. Sure, fuck it. We go to his car, we do coke. It's a great time. It brings me into like more of a lucid space because that's what coke does. You know,
yeah.
people have this thing about coke where they're like, oh, it makes you like jittery and whatever. If you're doing like a shit ton of it, it does, but mostly it just kind of like makes you the absolute best version of yourself. Like you on like a 10-day where just like you got dressed early and you got a shower and you're feeling real confident. That's coke.
Yeah.
And like a little part of me was just like, oh, should we be doing this? Well, we'll fucking find out. I'm already pretty deep. I might have done meth. Who knows? This it feels like the
That
coke will
is
be a
funny that
footnote.
you would question it at that point where you're like, should I? I don't know. Let's add number 6
I
here.
I I try. Yeah. This would be number 6 of the day. And I do try to be like self-aware as I'm doing drugs because I really like doing drugs. And if you're not constantly checking in on yourself, you're eventually going to hit a point where somebody makes you stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
But like if you're checking in and making sure you're not acting too wild and like you're not blowing all of your financials on drugs or whatever, like you can get away with doing drugs for a long time until you become old and broken like I am and move to West Virginia where you don't know where to get drugs from. But we get back from doing some coke. I'm feeling good. This day, there was a little minor setback, but like I got some coke. Me, it's been fucking years. I don't want to do the math on how many years, but some amount of years. It feels good. And then a friend of mine comes up to me with a bowl as we approach the campsite, and she's just like, Jupiter. I'm like, oh yeah, weed. No, that would be good. And I say something to that effect, just like, oh cool, weed. She's like, no, and I'm just like, look real close into the bowl that she's got, and it is my favorite drug. It's opium.
Opium.
I
All right.
I don't get to smoke opium very often.
Honestly, as we're going through this, I'm like, I'm running out of drugs that I know of. So you're gonna.
Oh,
I was like, okay, okay, so, but yeah, okay, opium, yeah, and
it's truly great. Like I've done like a lot of opioids and stuff. Like I've done morphine recreationally a lot. I've done a lot of recreational Vicodin because I had a phase where I was really into watching House, and so I was like, what if that's my deal? I one time my mom had like a roommate come live with us, and this roommate was a terrible woman. She had already scammed my mom once, but my mom's very easily scammable, and so she let her come in again. And she ended up ditching out on a lot of rent, but she left behind a lot of stuff. And I went and raided the stuff when it became clear that she wasn't coming back. And I found like I don't know, like a 2.5 foot by 1.5 foot plastic container full of prescription drugs when I was like
Jesus.
fucking 14 years old, 15 years old. And that launched me into a level of financial success that I've never quite matched. I kind of peaked with that. But the star of that show was a bottle of what's called Hydromet syrup. I don't think they make this anymore.
Probably
this was
not,
like
yeah.
an old lady who had old lady drugs. And Hydromet syrup is basically fucking laudanum. I don't know if you know what laudanum is, but it's basically like liquid Vicodin and cough syrup.
Okay.
As a thing that you'd prescribe to somebody because I don't know, you want to kill them in a nice way. There's not really a great medical application to it, but there's a wonderful teenage application to it. That was my favorite thing. I wake up tasting it a little bit from dreams sometimes. But the opium is honestly less intense than all that. Like actual smoking opium, pound for pound, I consider it better than weed.
Okay.
The experience is everything that I love about weed without any of the drawbacks of like anxiety or whatever. I also live with like a lot of chronic pain, and so anything that's just like this is made to take away your pain is pretty choice. I have fucking CTE from a million concussions that I've had, and so I get migraines all the time. And it's like, yeah, opium's great for that. But she pulls out the opium, and I just I hug her. Like I'm so happy to see this, and we have just like a nice time. I think just like a few hours hanging out, passing around some opium, and it's pretty chill. And I kind of think that that's going to be the end of my day.
Okay.
And like
you thought 7 was enough.
yeah. We got 7 right now. It starts to get like dark. Start to kind of fuck around with some music. None of the music at Earth Dance is good. Like it's a music festival.
But you're not really there for that part of it.
Yeah,
okay.
Like it's just sort of like it's all EDM, which like I like some EDM, but I like it when I'm high. Like it's not about like following a lot of EDM artists necessarily. It's just like, can you put on some heavy bass so it shakes me while I'm high? And they did that, bless them. I spent like a solid 15 minutes just staring at a guy doing some glass blowing, which was cool. Just like standard music festival stuff.
Yeah.
And then somebody brings around whippets, and I love a whippet. I have wrecked my whole lung and throat zone, which for me as a singer is particularly challenging. But I love a whippet. I love dissociatives. The being sent off like into space away from my body, great. Always love it.
Okay.
So we're hitting the whipped cream canister.
Right.
Doing a bunch of those, and that's great. And then I come to from just like being in fucking outer space. And I should say too, like the whippets I've okay, I'm gonna tell on myself a little bit because my family's never gonna fucking
I
listen
was
to
gonna
this.
say like you weren't already, but
Yeah, like look, a lot of this stuff was isolated to this day,
yeah,
and
that's
I'm
fine.
like, I feel fine about that. This one,
You did whippets at home quite a bit.
yeah, there was a period of time where I went to live with a portion of my family because I agreed to work as a nanny for their kids.
Okay.
And I've actually been a nanny, which is all of your listeners can enjoy the thought of this person telling this story, also being a nanny. But yeah, I'm very responsible around the kids that I take care of. Like I have a private life and a professional life, and I've always loved working with kids. I started being a babysitter early. I worked for a while as like an in-home healthcare agent for like disabled and elderly people. Until it kind of like became clear that I'm a disabled people and also the pay was terrible.
Yeah.
But I went up and lived there for a summer, taking care of those kids. Love those kids, very sweet. But again, I found myself in a situation where I had moved to a place that I don't know anybody, and I don't know where the fuck to get drugs. I don't know where to get weed.
Okay, so you're just
was
figuring
able to get,
out
like,
what you
cigarettes.
can do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so the one thing that I knew was like, if I go to like sex shops, like the any place that sells a dildo, basically. I can get the nitrous whipped cream cartridges, and they sell them there. There's usually like $20 a box or whatever. So that summer became the summer of me doing exclusively whippets.
The summer of whippets. Okay.
Yeah, and like the summer before that, and also the spring and the fall and the winter were also whippet times because this was like right in the heart of when I was living with this cold.
Okay.
And the ground there was littered just 24/7 all the time in whippet canisters.
Really?
If you look at some of the early stuffy doll art, like I have whippet canisters in it because it's just like so typifying to me of the experience. And when I was up there, I was like traveling back in time and just like having sense memories of
this, or we gotta go check out this early stuffy doll stuff and compare it to the story now.
If you scroll back on the Facebook
like
or the Instagram,
finding.
You can see some of it. Yeah.
The 25. Okay.
I was just like traveling back to what I at the time considered my home because I absolutely hated being up there. It was miserable living up there. I liked my actual job, but like every second not spent with the people who at the time I loved and considered family down there, like it was miserable.
Okay. So we added on the day of, we've added whippets. Is that 8? Is that 8 or 9?
Yeah, that's 8.
Okay.
And I came to from whippets
we're running low on time, so let's get these last 2 in here because otherwise
the last
it's gonna.
2 are quick. The last 2 are quick. It's fine. I came to from whippets with somebody offering me something I'd never done before and have never done since. Would if somebody offered it. Ketamine.
Ketamine. Okay.
Which I don't know if you've done. I don't want you to incriminate yourself.
No, I haven't done it, but I feel like it became popular at music festivals and maybe towards that time. So I hadn't heard of, or I thought it was crazier, I guess, than now I feel like I know a lot of people who've done it. So
right, yeah, and it's honestly very similar in function to whippets. It's like it's still doing that, like, taking you away from yourself, but like it's a bit more like, they talk about like a K-hole, like you get into this more like the horse blinders kind of situation where you're just sort of gone, rather than like whippets. I've fucking seized on whippets before. Like I've had full like spasm reaction to whippets. The ketamine, I was just like just gone. Just gone for a while. I keep trying to do visual bits and I remember that this is mostly a podcast.
Well, it'll be on YouTube too, but
yeah, okay, cool. And then the last one, and again, I preface this story with like, nothing bad happens. It was a good story.
I know. Well, and I'm so impressed that every turn you're like, yeah, I'll do whatever. Every time you're offered something, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once you're like 6 in, you really just gotta say
That's
yes to
true. You
everything,
gotta
you
go
know?
to double digits. And yeah.
Like at a certain point, you're like trying to rack it up. You got the counter going in your pocket, trying to see how many you can get. But once I finally got out of the like ketamine space, which did take uh, probably an hour of just like being on ketamine,
Hmm.
to the point where I felt like I could stand up. I went out to go just like enjoy some music. I'm like, man, I still got a whole lot of drugs in me. I'm not tripping on mushrooms. Like it's the mushrooms have like mostly chilled out at this point, but there's still like some very clear
Right.
visual hallucinations that I
Hmm.
don't attribute to anything else. And then I'm like in the crowd of the music playing, and some of my friends are like hula hooping and stuff. And one of them comes up to me and is just like, "Hey, you want some Molly?" I look down. This time it is Molly.
Finally, you
This
get the
time
Molly.
it's that good light yellow brown stuff that I fucking crave. And I just like lick it out of her hands. And then the rest of the night was great. Like
Well, yeah.
I was almost a little bit hesitant about telling the story just because I was like, it's like it doesn't have like an interesting ending. It's just got like, and then it was just fucking
And then it
dope
was
until I
okay.
passed out at like 6 a.m.
I mean, you telling that going through the story, there was multiple times where I was getting anxious because like when you had to go to the porta potty and stuff like that for me was like, oh, I would have freaked out, which it sounded
Oh
like
yeah, I
you
did
were as
freak out.
well. But then to be like, all right, well, let's try something else. Like it's a lot. Obviously
Sometimes
not a
when you're in
great
hell, the only
idea.
way is through.
Yeah, obviously not a great idea in general. But if you want to leave your cult, do 10 drugs in a day. That's
Yeah,
pretty good.
it's I think it did provide me a bit of clarity the next day when I found out about
What happened?
the
Yeah.
again kind of de facto leader of the cult's activities. That like the next day I was just like, I mean, it doesn't feel like rock bottom for me, but it feels like somebody here's rock
Somebody
bottom,
here
and
went
maybe I
rock
should take that.
that what a great moral of the story. Okay, so where can people follow you and tell them about your album is out now. December 4th came out. So yeah, tell them. And you got to go, now that we know this story, we have to go check out some of the older Stuffy Doll
Get the
stuff.
backlogs.
Yeah.
Get the backlogs for sure. Some of that early stuff is real solid gold. I've got albums also about like songs about cartoons, and like I have an album of songs that some of which are good, about stand up comedy
Hey, there
actually.
you go.
The if you follow me on, I'm on basically anything as a Stuffy Doll Band, like at Stuffy Doll Band. I'm on Insta. I'm on Hive now because I'm giving up Twitter. I hate it there. I've
I don't
always
know what
kind of
Hive is.
hated it there, but it's become worse. So I've kind of pivoted to Hive at Stuffy Doll Band. Stuffy Doll has a Facebook if you're still doing that in 2022, and Bandcamp Stuffy Doll, and then also just like wherever you stream music, it's all on there. Apple Music, Spotify, fucking Tidal. For some reason, I'm on Tidal.
Me
It's the
too.
service I do
It's
puts it on
confusing.
everything.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody uses Tidal, but if you do, it's there.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for doing it. Make sure you
Yeah,
go
thank you so
check
much.
out all the Stuffy Doll stuff. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can subscribe, and we have YouTube memberships as well. If you're listening, like, subscribe, rate, review, all those things. It's very helpful. But right now, you can just keep watching Dumb Pitches.
You're weird.
Yes.